Greetings from chess.com. To my right, you can see the round 9 results. Fabiano Caruana, Magnus Carlsen, and Anish Giri won their games. I have a feeling that this particular round showed how chess in 2021 would look like. There were a lot of exciting moments and quite unexpected moves. Very typical of modern chess. You will see that. So before we go to the decisive games, let's check in with Hari Krishna's game against Anton David. Anton was pressing for most part of the game. It was you can say some sort of a night off, but there was a king walk. You can see that the king in this position came to e2, then came all the way to f3 to protect e4. And Anton said that there is no good way for black to exploit this, and so it's very interesting. And we reach an endgame where white has an opposite color bishop endgame. I mean, white has a light squared, black has a dark squared, but black is quite solid and white doesn't have two weaknesses. If you consider, let's say, the power of this bishop, that alone is not enough for black to convert this advantage. It's obvious that white is the one who is pressing, but Hari Krishna was able to defend. Like, he was able to defend b5 and d6 very easily. If there was probably another weakness of some sort, maybe if the king was in some trouble, then maybe white has some chances, but Hari Krishna was able to defend that well. And then the rooks got exchanged, I think, at one moment here, and then it was agreed to draw because king takes e5 is met by bishop c7 check, and black is having enough counterplay in case white takes king takes e5, and the game ended in a draw. Let's move on and check in with the tactical shots. I am very excited to show you this game by Wojtaszek against Caruana. So Caruana played d6 here. He rarely plays King's Indian, and in this interview he revealed that maybe we are not really aware of all the potential that King's Indian has. So he brings a fresh perspective in this game. And let me go to this position after bishop g4. White usually plays d5 here, but he went bishop e3, which is fine. But then here Fabiano Caruana executes his idea with bishop takes f3 and then ed4, and then gets his knight to c6 and then the rook to e8. There is something very instructive that we could pick up from this game. So I'll come to that moment here, which is bishop takes c3. Now, why this move is viable in this position is very beautiful. Obviously, you would not like to trade this bishop in the King's Indian, but he has a point. So what Fabiano Caruana said in his interview is that white would love to play pawn to g3, bishop to g2. So let me make a few null moves and show you what exactly white is looking for. So let's say if he gets this position, then white is clearly better, because he will soon get bishop h6, f4, e5, and a lot of initiative. And with double bishop advantage, it's very clear that he will convert this game. But he's not able to get that. He doesn't have the time to go g3 because black will have knight e5 or knight c5, and he can't really protect this pawn e4 comfortably. And so there is some sort of discomfort that white has to experience in this position after queen f6. So after queen f6, if he takes queen f6, knight f6, this pawn on e4 feels the danger. White has to play c5 and maybe hope for equalizing. I mean, position is objectively equal, but being white, it demands that you play for advantage. But that after bishop into c3, the black's play is very concrete and makes it very difficult for white to hope for an advantage. So Wojtaszek eventually decided to sacrifice a pawn, but maybe he chose the wrong pawn to give. After queen c1, knight c5, queen b1. So he's trying to defend this pawn, but maybe, I mean, of course, you should never think of a move like bishop c5 in this situation, because that will be a suicide, positional suicide, because knight will come to d4 and black has a good knight versus bad bishop position. So maybe this way of playing queen c1, queen b1 was not the best. Maybe something like, let's say, or let's go even further and say, instead of playing rook e1, maybe b4 here, and if knight takes e4, rook c1, something like this. This game is very well analyzed by Simon Williams on chess.com's YouTube channel. You can check that. He also mentions this, that maybe giving up the central pawn would give more chances to white. But even Fabiano mentions that he doesn't really like this queen c1, queen b1. Maybe there was something better, but all in all, I'm very like appreciative of the move bishop into c3, because it has its own ideas, and it also shows how chess rules are relative. Like Mark Twain once said, that all generalizations are false, including this one. So accordingly, you have to take the principles and rules with a pinch of salt, because there could be some exceptions. So here lies one to take on c3. So later he built his position slowly. He played on the dark squares. You see, first played h5. The white has no real plan, and that really takes away all the chances. But black now slowly aims to attack on the king side, and I really like the way he did it. He first controls the dark squares. You see, he controls the dark squares and then launches an attack on the king side. And now, if you want to look for a plan, it's a good idea to consult your pawns for pawn breaks. But which pawn break do you think black should be aiming for? Something like g4, g3, h3? No. Fabiano Caruana has c6, d5 in his mind, and he does it at the right moment. He first plays queen g6, and then gets rook a e8, and then gets knight to e6, and then gets knight to f4, and then plays c6. Now he is actually ready to play d5, but he makes one more preparatory move before he does that, which is rook e6, and then goes for d5. So this reminds me of how Niels Gandelius had a similar game where he improved the position slowly and won in one of the games in Tata Steel. So in order to launch an attack, preparation is necessary, and you see how well black is prepared. And then the rest of the game was, very easy for Caruana. He was very tactically alert. He took and then played d4 and then got gf4, and then also played ef3. After queen g6, there is rook g6, and if king goes to f2 in this position, there is, you can also play rook g3 and then threaten a mate on g4, and white's position is hopeless. So king h1 is possible, but there is f2, and then that's what happened in the game. f2 happened, and then knight c4. This was a nice last tactical shot, attacking the bishop and also threatening rook e1 check. And after rook c4, rook e1 check, Wojtaszek resigned. A great win for Fabiano Caruana, isn't it? I really loved this game. For me, this is probably a best strategic game. Now let's move on. Let's move on to the next game. This is a game again. Again a decisive result. MVL versus Anish Giri, and Anish Giri was white in this game. So let's flip the board. Yes. So here it was a knight off. It's interesting that all of his opponents are playing knight off against him, and it's e5, and the knight goes to f3. Let me go to the critical position after queen e3. Here MVL played not here, sorry, he played it here. Rook takes c3. He got a very nice exchange sacrifice. It's very typical of Sicilian. So if you're playing Sicilian, rook into c3 thematic sacrifice is something you should know. And after bc3, he backs it up with a pawn sacrifice. So white is having an exchange plus a pawn, but his king is in danger. So if you evaluate this position, I would say that black has quite a lot of compensation because of this king, which Anish Giri also shared in his interview. And let me come to the position after rook c5 to show you how important it is to play defensive chess and play those important moves. Now you see he plays bishop e5. It's attacked, so you defend it. Then queen d6. Now some sort of rook into c3 might come, so king b2, b5. Now the idea is b4, and now in order to prevent black from playing b4, you have to play a move like a3. So the last few moves have been very defensive, but they were necessary for white to play. And if black maintains this equilibrium, I think it's not easy for white to crack, and white cannot be better in this position. He has to hold on. But the game changes again after rook a1, rook b4, a4, queen b4, d6. Suddenly black started playing slightly passive, and that is where Anish Giri got his chance. After rook b8, I think rook a3, maybe queen b5, just holding there was fine, but he went with queen b7, and then after that, he got a chance. Anish Giri got his chance to transform his advantage into a slightly better endgame. He played king c1 and then queen d5, followed by rook a6, and now he gives up his exchange back with rook takes c6 and then exchanges the queen. So this position is actually better for white, but how better, it all depends on how black responds. So here, when they reached the endgame, it was already quite convincing for white. After rook d6, one very important move to find is f3, because ef3 is met by rook e8 mate. After rook f6, fe4. After e5, I think white has a clear winning advantage, and he duly converted it and won his game. But there's one very interesting line that I would like to show you after rook d8. This was analyzed by our staff, Peter Doggers, who writes the news reports for chess.com. So he mentions that there is a line in which there are 6 pins. I'll show you that. Queen d4, bishop f4. So this is the first pin, bishop f7, queen f7, and then rook a7. You can see this is pin number 3. The pin number 2 was, let's say, this one. And then there comes pin number 4, you see. And then after this line, here comes pin number 5. And now last pin is pin number 6, which wins for white, because if black takes rook takes 8, white can play queen c6 check and then pick up the rook. And there is no good check for black, and white wins in this variation. Just a funny variation, and all kudos to Peter Doggers for an exciting line. So that was Anish Giri versus MVL. Let's move on. This is a game between Magnus Carlsen and Niels Grandelius. And Magnus Carlsen got his win with the white pieces in the knight off, and he tried the queen d3 knight off, which is quite rare. It was played by Fedosiv, Anton David, I think, and also played by Van Willy. And Van Willy also tweeted about this. So after queen d3, I think this is a kind of a move like a3, which was once popular for a while. But of course, h3 is much more popular. But yeah, queen d3, it's just like a pass and seeing what black does. Here, Niels Grandelius went for e6, and after a4, knight c6, knight c6, bc6, he played queen g3. This is the main idea of playing queen d3, so that it makes the life for black slightly difficult because of this g7 pawn, but I think he played well. After bishop b7, bishop e2, bishop e7. Now if you take the pawn, there is rook g8 and the pawn drops. So bishop f4 first. You provoke black to play e5 and then put your bishop to e3. Now if black gets d5, d4 without any trouble, he is very much better, but sometimes he has to sacrifice a pawn, and that is what happened in the game. So he got this f5 followed by d5, but then this pawn on f5, Magnus Carlsen held on to the pawn, and then when he had to give up the pawn, he converted and got another advantage in return. So now in this position, if you take queen takes f5, the problem is queen takes f5, rook takes f5, bishop g4, rook f7, bishop d7, and then knight b6. So there were always some tactics in the game that prevented white from taking this immediately. So he had to play bishop e4, and then after bishop d3, bishop takes f5, takes knight b6. Again, you still have some trouble, like some things to worry about. For example, if the knight, let's say if you go rook d8, then you have to play knight takes d7, rook takes d7, there is rook takes e5. Such tactics are there, and it's a given when you are playing Magnus Carlsen that he will not let it easily. He will always keep posing problems. So position was objectively equal at one point after this position. So here is where the problems start coming up. After rook takes a6, rook f6, you can, instead of rook b8, maybe black can still play rook a f8 and hope for some play. For example, if rook e2, then queen f6, and if white plays b7, you can go rook takes f2 and then something like this, and still black has chances to hold. For example, he at least has queen f4 check, and if you go king g1, there is at least queen f1. But to play rook a f8 is it's a matter of calculation. You have to be very precise and not be afraid of this b7 pawn. But it's practical to play rook b8, and the game went on. And again, there was another opportunity after rook takes b6. Magnus Carlsen played f4, which looks very good at the first sight because e4 is met by a rook e8 checkmate. But after queen moves to d8, there is a rook e5, and this position is actually better for white. So instead, black should have played c4, attack the queen, and then after queen c4 played e4, so that rook e8 check is not a mate. You are deflecting the queen away from d3, and now play this position. And this king and pawn endgame is okay, and black can hope to hold on. But that was not meant to be, and after rook e5, Magnus Carlsen slowly converted the position and won his game. So those were the game-changing moments and tactical shots. Let's look at the tips. So chess rules are relative. You see bishop into c3 idea working for Fabiano Caruana in this game. That also shows that there are many things in chess that can change depending on the situation. Remember Mark Twain's quote. And I think you have to really study Anish Giri's game again with the board and see how calmly he was able to play. And there are also a lot of chess books based on the topic of defense. It's a good idea to study them. If you are really into the zone of solving positions, I will definitely recommend Practical Chess Defense by Jakob Agard. And there were a lot of moments in this round which could serve as a good positions to practice your technique. So you can set a position in which one side is materially ahead and play it out against a friend or a computer. And then to understand why it was not so easy for Anton to outplay Hare Krishna, I think you can also study more examples based on the topic of principle of two weaknesses. So you know how important it is to get two weaknesses and how to exploit it when you have those from your opponent, and also how to provoke. So before I say bye-bye to all of you, let me give you an overview of the standings. This is the standings right now. Anish Giri, Fabiano Caruana and Ali Reza, they are all on 3. They are all leading with 6/9, and Magnus Carlsen is on 5 out of 9 as of now. Hare Krishna is on 4.5. And let me go to the pairings. Today at 6:30 p.m. you can watch these matches on chess.com/TV. Hare Krishna will be playing Aryan Thari. Fabiano Caruana will be playing against Magnus Carlsen. That will be a mouth-watering clash. And Anish Giri will be playing Wojtaszek. And Ali Reza Firouzja will be playing Nils Grandelius. I am very excited to see what is going to happen next, and I hope you are as well. Don't forget to tune in 6:30 p.m. onwards on chess.com/TV. I'll be back with another video soon. Until then, take care. Bye bye.